Hey there, audio friends. I've got a selection of items today that were sent to me from Hifi College. They are a new affiliate partner of the channel, and they sent all this stuff out for free to me, just so you know. They aren't trying to influence this review in any way. But what we've got today are some fxaudio products. So we've got the little fxaudio DAC. We've got the Tube 05 tube amp, and then we've got the Tube 02 Pro tube amp. So a good little range of products, none of them very expensive. So the DAC is $50, the 02 Pro tube amp is $80, and then the 05 is I think $120 or so, before any coupons or anything like that. So if I get it working, I'll have the affiliate links down below. Feel free to buy from those or buy somewhere else, if you don't want to use those. But let's dive into these. We'll talk about kind of where each product fits. It's interesting that they sent me multiple tube amps, and then I've got another tube amp / DAC, but that'll be a separate review. And then I got a couple other products from fxaudio from Hifi College as well. So I got a lot of these to review. So are any of them any good? Let's dive in and talk about what we get here, and then ultimately, of course, we'll talk about sound and whether I think they're worth the money. So first off, the simplest, the fxaudio itty bitty little DAC. I mean, this is almost a dongle sized DAC, honestly. You can see pretty simple LEDs in the front, shows power, a little light for PCM, a little light for DSD, and then on the back you've just got USB-C in for power and data, and then you got RCA out. We're not going to talk too much about the fxaudio. Bottom line is, even though this is a cheap small DAC, it just doesn't sound that good. I was using it, and I had it hooked up to the Tube 05, and I was like, God, this thing is like harsh sounding and doesn't sound very good. Well, it wasn't really the Tube 05's fault, is what I found out, because I hooked up my Valley to this as well, and it sounded bad. So it's just, this DAC I think is something I would avoid if I was you. So we're just going to put that one aside for the time being. And then we'll focus on these tube amps, which I do think are okay. So first off, the cheaper one, the 02, uses, these smaller tubes. It's like 6J1 tubes, I think is what they're called, 6J1, 6J2. Bottom line, you're probably not tube rolling this thing. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but it's a fairly cheap amp. I'm not sure you're going to get much more if you roll, but it's always a nice option to have. There's certainly less options with this one, using that smaller tube setup. You can see on the front here we've got a selector button, and that turns it on as well, and we've got a little gain button, aux 1, aux 2, 3.5 1/4" volume knob. Volume knob isn't anything special, but it's not terrible either. On the top, you just got the tubes. This is one of those amps that has like orange lights that lights up the tubes a little bit if you're into that sort of thing. On the back, what is kind of nice about this, guys, you got a couple of input options, and then you do have an output option, which is cool. And then you got a 12-volt in. Both of these guys use this little wall wart power brick. It's fine, it's small, but my biggest issue is the cable length on this thing is only like 4 feet or like a meter long, so not a very long cable if you need a longer run. That's a limiting factor, I would say. So that's the Tube 05. That's the 02 Pro, excuse me. Let's look at the 05 here. So the 05 is a little bit boxier, a little bit smaller footprint. This uses an EC88 or E88C, I can't remember. It's that style of tube. It's the same as the Valley. And it comes with this little like peacock tube in there. I can't remember what brand that is. It's not my favorite tube in the world. Front 3.5 and 1/4" on the back, and then you just got one RCA and one RCA out, and this uses that same wall wart. Volume knob, this one is like a selector button too, so this turns it on, and then you've got a few EQ options and things like that in this menu here. So it does have a little bit more, and I thought that was good because I honestly didn't think this thing sounded as good as the 02 Pro. So what was I listening to with these guys? I was listening mainly, honestly, to the MrAyrit Lyric 2 through these. So a very, very detailed and revealing headphone. And that just happens to be the one I'm in reviewing and what I was enjoying listening to. I did try a couple of other headphones, but that was the main one. And I mean, I guess here's where I would land with this. I think if you're looking to just try a little bit of tube flavor, you want that kind of warmer, softer sound that is often associated with tubes. Well, the O2 Pro here I thought sounded pretty darn good. It has nothing stood out to me as negative when I was listening to it. Of course, it's not going to be the most resolving thing in the world for $80, and it doesn't have that much power. I think, at 300 ohms, it's maybe like 65 watts, or not 65 watts, 65 milliwatts. Hold on, let me double check. 600 ohms, 65 milliwatts. So, I mean, it's enough to drive probably most headphones, but it's certainly not a ton of power. It's got close to a watt in 32 ohms, but again, for a 32 ohm headphone, you're not going to need that much power anyway. So not that powerful, but I thought sounded pretty good. Good bass, fairly wide sounding, not a lot of depth to it. A nice soft presentation though, easy to listen to without, no harshness or any sharp edges or anything like that. So just kind of a nice warm sounding amp that has a decent width to it and decent definition for the price and things like that. So I think if you're just looking to have something to run in conjunction with like a solid state amp, that this guy fits that bill pretty well, that you can switch to get a little bit different flavor, a little bit easier to listen to. So I rather liked the O2 Pro personally. The O5 is okay. I didn't like it as much as the O2 Pro, honestly. I did try several different tubes, including a JJ and a Gold Lion. But ultimately, I felt like this thing came off a little bit harsher. It's certainly more forward than the O2 Pro with its treble presentation. And just maybe there's a little bit more clarity overall in it. But I thought that came at a cost of becoming a little harsh and sibilant in some cases. And it also doesn't have the same amount of space as the O2 Pro has. So ultimately for me, I think the O5 is a pass, as well as, the fxaudio DAC. I think I wouldn't really look at either of these personally. The one plus with the O5 is it uses that E88C tube. So you have a lot more tube rolling options if you want to tube roll, but I think there's probably better amps like the Valley out there to do it with that are maybe a little more reputable that I could recommend more. But as far as, like a 6J1 tube amp goes, I mean, this is $80. There's other cheap ones out there like this, but I think this sounds as good as any of them that I've tried. So this one I would say is a win. And again, I'll have it linked down below. I do have, so my impression of fxaudio products is mixed at this point in time. So I've got one other DAC that I've been using at my main setup upstairs, and that one's working pretty well. But like I said, I got a couple of products here that didn't do too good. So, and we'll see how my other DAC does with the fxaudio stuff. So if you're interested in any of that, consider subscribing to the channel. Stick around. What's your experience with fxaudio or Hifi College? Have you bought from them? Have you tried any of the fxaudio products? How did they leave you feeling? Drop those opinions down below. As always, I appreciate you watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.